Hello, everyone, and welcome to my final midweek Bible break with you. I'll be leaving St. Paul Lutheran Church following services this Sunday. We gather for worship here at 9 o'clock, and this particular Sunday coming up here on the 28th of June is our confirmation Sunday. We have one young lady who will be confirmed, and our congregational choir and bell choir will be on display as well. And we're hoping to have a reception following the service over in Spees Hall. So if you are able, please come out and join us for this special service of worship. I want to share with you for our Bible study today some of the prophetic witness that we find in the Old Testament. Somebody once said that the role of the pastor is to be both prophet as well as priest. We are called, someone has said, to both afflict the comfortable as well as to comfort the afflicted. And this has been a role that's been laid out ever since Martin Luther talked about preaching law and gospel. We preach the bad news, so to speak, what God's demands are, as well as the comforting words of his good news, the mercy, the grace that comes through Jesus Christ. And in these unprecedented times, the ability to be prophetic, to speak the truth to power, to afflict the comfortable, so to speak, is extremely important. It's the voice of Dr. Anthony Fauci, or a Dr. Rachel Levine, and laying out the scientific rationale for dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. But it's also the voice of those protesters who are demanding a just response to racial injustice. And so way back in the 8th century BC, the prophet Amos, who also spoke truth to power, he was living in the southern portion of the divided kingdom of Israel, the land of Judah, and from there he came north to the 10 tribes that made up the northern kingdom of Israel. And there he spoke against those who were living the good, easy life. Amos chapter 6, verses 4 to 7, if you'd like to open up your Bibles, if you have them with you. He writes, "Alas for those who lie on beds of ivory," and catch this imagery, and you can see it in your mind's eye of how these people were living, the wealthier people in their culture. "Alas for those who lie on beds of ivory and lounge on their couches and eat lambs from the flock and calves from the stall," kind of talking about an ancient form of veal parmesan, if you will, the young calves taken from the stall to make veal. "Those who sing idle songs to the sound of the harp, and like David improvise on instruments of music, who drink wine from bowls and anoint themselves with the finest oils, but are not grieved over the ruin of Joseph." And Joseph is another way of talking about Israel. Joseph, of course, was the special son of Jacob. "Therefore," Amos writes, "they shall now be the first to go into exile, and the revelry of the loungers shall pass away." Because you see, Assyria, the kingdom of Assyria there in Nineveh, is preparing to come and overrun the northern kingdom of Israel. And so God had sent them, Amos, to be the prophet, to tell them of the bad news, I guess in this case, of God's law operative at a time when people are taking advantage of one another. So God is fed up with the people's nonchalance in the face of suffering. Such is the same thing that has taken place with the murders of George Floyd and the other African Americans at the hands of police. God is disparaging their feeble attempts to placate him. Amos 5:21 to 24 God is saying, I despise your festivals, and I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Those church services that you're doing are pro forma. They're ritualistic. They have no meaning. They are simply empty words. Amos goes on, even though you offer me your burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. And the offerings of well-being of your fatted animals I will not look upon. Take away from me the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the melody of your harps. But, he says, and here is his remedy, here is his definition of justice. He says, let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. One thing, among a few that I can still remember from my seminary days so long ago there in Philadelphia, were the words of Dr. William Lazarus, who was our ethics professor, Dr. Lazarus, who later became the bishop of the Metropolitan New York Synod. But he would tell us second-year students at seminary that the form that justice takes, or the form that love takes when there's more than one person to love, is to do justice. If it's just you and I, we can love one another with the gospel and be gracious and merciful. But when we have more than one person to love, when we've got to cut up the pie or the pieces of cake and dole them out, make sure they're equal in size. If you live in a family with multiple children, you know what it's like to try to evenly divide the dessert. And it's the same way in our society. If we've got more than one person to love, we've got different ethnic groups, Hispanic, African American, Caucasian, Italians, Irish, Polish, all those. We need to divide the pie up in equitable ways so that everybody can feel part of the American dream. And I remember Dr. Lazarus' words that when racial justice is systemic in our society, then justice takes the form of comfort for the afflicted, in the form of judicial pronouncements for those who are accused of unlawfully depriving people of their civil rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as it says in our Declaration of Independence, and very clearly life. Depriving of a person of life by kneeling on their neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds is definitely depriving a person of their civil rights. So what does God expect from us in our day and time? Well, as the prophet Micah has so aptly put it, it's a combination of law and gospel, both principles working in tandem. He says in Micah 6, verses 6 to 8, with what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness? There you see the law, doing justice, but loving kindness and mercy at the same time. Where was kindness shown with George Floyd? Where was there any kindness when he was pleading for his life and for his mother? He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? And with that, I will conclude and just wish you Godspeed. And hopefully we can see you for our services of worship at St. Paul at some point in time. You're more than welcome to come. And we may even be able to continue these midweek Bible breaks with some offerings from our congregation in the future. So Godspeed, and God go with you.